Hello everybody, and delighted to see you once again in this new video. Today, the objective is to elucidate another method of intervention employed by digital service companies. This is the delegation of responsibilities that is commonly referred to as lump sum benefits on a more regular basis. Before diving into the matter, if you haven't, feel free to click subscribe and activate the bell for timely notifications. Delegating responsibility is less common in companies than delegating expertise because it is more complex to implement and requires more preparation and implementation time. Firstly, let's recall that the service provider is obligated with this intervention mode to a result, not a means. Notion that I specified in the previous video. This type of commitment can only be achieved if the client has a clear visibility of their needs and if the provider knows exactly what they need to do and the objectives they need to achieve. Of course, he must also have the expected expertise. Thus, as part of its call for tender, the client must draft a precise specifications document including the project scope, objectives, governance, deliverable activities, and expected functionalities for application development. He must also express his requirements in terms of expertise and certification, tools and language to master, quality assurance, security, training, roles and responsibilities, etc. It is also important that the consulted providers understand the context, the profession, and the organization of the client. All this information will allow them to properly size their technical and commercial offer, to propose a solution, an organization, and a methodology adapted to the client's needs. Attention! Despite obligation to achieve results, service provider not responsible for everything. The client must also respect his commitments and provide the means for his partner to successfully carry out his mission. For example, if the validation of a step or an intermediate deliverable is not respected on the client side, or if expected information is not shared by the client, this can have an impact on the provider's mission in terms of timing and quality. Regarding the place of intervention of the service providers, consultants generally intervene on the client's side for meetings that require a physical presence, such as facilitating workshops. For analysis activities, documentary writing, or simple meetings, they perform their services in the premises of their company or in telecommuting mode. In a fixed price service or delegation of responsibility, if the provider's mission is completed before the scheduled date in the contract, which is rather rare, the consultants leave. But if the project is not completed on time due to the service provider, the latter continues its service at its own expense until the end of the completion of its mission. In other words, overtime is necessary for him to achieve the objectives of the contract, is not billed to the client, because in this mode of intervention, the price of the service is fixed or flat. Late penalties may or may not be applied based on contractual commitments and relationship quality. Concerning the payment of the service, it is a good practice to pay the provider gradually, depending on the level of progress of their mission. For this purpose, a billing schedule based on predefined deliverables is negotiated in the contract. As an example, if we consider a development service for an application, the deliverables and billing schedule could very well be as follows. Account, 10% of total amount. Account not deliverable but first payment to provider. The design document for the application, including functional and technical specifications, accounts for 30%. Implementation of the app include unit tests, 40%. Reminder, tests verify technical functioning of the app. Creating user test protocols, accounting for 10% of the total. Developing user guides and training key users, 5% of the overall effort. The launch preparation document, 5%. Of course, this list of deliverables is not exhaustive, and we can have a different billing schedule depending on the context of the negotiation between the parties. If we now analyze the daily rate of a flat rate service, provided that this information is available, we can notice that it is on average 10 to 20% higher than the daily rate of a service in delegation mode of skills. So why? When the service provider commits to the obligation of results, he takes a risk. The risk that the mission does not go as planned. The risk that they have to intervene longer than expected is this, without charging customers for additional services. He will anticipate a contingency rate, in other words, a safety margin included in the financial proposal he submits. Thus, it is feasible to decrease this contingency rate and, as a result, the total cost of the service. What? The more visibility the provider has on the organization and its mission, the more guarantees it will have of the client's commitments regarding the resources, and the more confident it will be. Thus, the lower the contingency rate can be revised. Therefore, what are the reasons why certain companies opt to employ this moderately intricate mode of intervention in their operations? First of all, they want to control their budget, and the fixed price of a turnkey service is very suitable for this constraint. In addition, the obligation of results brings them more serenity regarding the objectives to be achieved by a defined date. What delegation of skills does not allow? Because even if the daily rate is more competitive, often one or more contract extensions are necessary to finalize the mission. In the end, the overall cost of the service may be higher than that of a fixed price service. There is an error that is frequently found within organizations, that of negotiating a fixed price service with a result obligation without ensuring the necessary prerequisites for the implementation of this type of contract. For instance, in cases where the deliverables are not clearly defined, the roles and responsibilities matrix between the client and its provider is completely absent from the contract. This can also be a decision and validation process that is too slow and not suitable for the project schedule. These can be unidentified key interlocutors at the start of the mission, a non-existent sponsor. In short, there are many other reasons. One of the direct consequences is a schedule that is not respected and an unsatisfactory deliverable quality. In this context, the provider is not directly responsible for this situation and therefore may request the invoicing of an additional service or an amendment to the contract in order to achieve the objectives of the mission. The final price is no longer the one stipulated in the initial contract, so it is no longer fixed. Finally, the client is in a situation close to a skills denial, but with the price of a responsibility denial being 10 to 20% more expensive due to the contingency integrated into the provider's initial financial offer. The implementation of a disclaimer is a good practice, but it is necessary to prepare the client organization for this type of intervention. If the latter is not prepared or lacks visibility on its needs, one suggestion would be to commence the mission with a delegation of skills for a few months or even a few weeks. The deliverables of this initial service would enable the preparation of a subsequent fixed rate and more efficient service. We'll see in a future video why this intervention mode significantly reduces the social legal risks of illicit labor loan and offense of illegal subcontracting. Concerning the duration of a call for tender for a fixed price service, it is longer compared to that of a delegation of skills. The duration varies depending on criteria like project nature, complexity, stakeholder number, organization size, resources, maturity in best practices, visibility on needs, and other criteria. For example, the duration of a consultation for an audit of an activity ranges from 1 month, which is rather rare, to 3 months. The duration of a call for tender to select an integrator for a software solution ranges from 3 to 6 months and sometimes longer depending on the mentioned criteria. I hope you enjoyed this brief educational moment. If you have any questions, comments, or reactions, I thank you in advance for expressing them to me. Thank you for listening and see you soon on my next videos.